Hi, thanks for stopping by Grains in Small Places, and today we're going to be making a fun focaccia. This is great for if you want to do bread art or anything festive, delicious. This is great for the holidays, a great snack, great all year round. Delicious and tasty, and you can customize it to whatever flavors you like. This video is going to be a video in collaboration with Mary from The Rose Homestead. I will make sure to put a link to her channel in my description box below. So once you're done watching this video, go check out her videos. She also does fresh milled flour and lots of sourdough things, homesteading, healthier living videos, stuff like that. So check her out after you're done watching this one, and I will put a link to the Collab playlist below because we're going to be doing this over a series of 3 weeks on the way up till Christmas, so it's kind of exciting. So let's get started. Okay, so to make this focaccia dough, we're going to weigh out our wheat berries, and we need a total of about 460 grams or so. You may need a little more, you may need a little less. This is kind of a on the wet side dough, and that's what we want. So I'm going to use half, well, a little more than half hard white and some kamut. So I'm looking for probably about 3/4 of the hard white and another quarter of the kamut for my milling purposes. The hard white helps me get that strong gluten, so it's nice and stretchy when we make the dough. So I'm basically using pretty much my pizza dough recipe because I find that that makes wonderful, lovely focaccia. Let's see, let's go for about 340 grams of hard white. We want it to be the majority because this is the one that has the strong gluten structure. Okay, and the kamut adds a nice buttery yellow soft, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's delicious. So if you haven't tried it yet, I recommend you giving it a try. I use it in a lot of my recipes. Okay, 461, I'll take that. We're good with that. And now that I have 461 grams of wheat berries, I'm going to take this over to my mill, and that'll give me 460 grams of fresh milled flour. Right now I'm using my Nutrimill Harvest Grain Mill, and you can use the coupon code GRAINY for $20 off your grain mill or any of the Nutrimill or Bosch mixers with the link in the description box below. Okay, and while that is milling, I'm going to go ahead and grab my water so I can start getting that heated up. You can use water. You can also use beer. I love how it amps up the flavor. You can do the same for my pizza dough or for the focaccia. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make one of my batches in the recipe. I have a printable recipe. I'll put the link to that in the description box below, but I'm going to make one batch of this. If you want to double this or even triple it and have extra pizza dough on hand, the dough freezes nicely. It goes in the refrigerator nicely. I like to allow this stuff to kind of naturally ferment and improve in flavor as it sits in the refrigerator. So that's a nice tip. We're going to go ahead and make the dough up today and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, and that just enhances the flavor like you wouldn't believe. So next time you make pizza dough, even if you're not using my recipe, I do recommend you try letting that pizza dough sit in the fridge 1, 2, or even 3 days before you decide to make pizza with it. And I have a feeling you might like the results. Okay, so we're looking for about 1.5 cups, which is about 354 grams, I want to say. This is 352. I'm happy with that. I'm going to pop this in the microwave for like a minute or so, half hour to a minute, sorry, 30 seconds to a minute, and warm that up. Not a half an hour. That's way too long in the microwave. Okay, so I got my mixer out, and as I was saying, I am making one batch of this. So if you like a thick focaccia, you may want to just use this whole batch for like a large jelly roll pan, like 15 by 14 or however long those are. If you're looking for a thinner focaccia, then you're going to want to divide this at least in half. So if you like an 8x8, you're probably going to want this, divide this into even thirds. So I like how it's versatile and you can change the amount that you get per batch depending on how thick you like it and what pan you use. So today I'm going for a medium thickness. I have a 9x13 pan, but it's kind of I guess on the small side. I've got parchment paper lining it. I'm setting that to the side because once this is ready to go, I'm going to put half of my dough on that pan, and then I'm going to save the other half in a Ziploc bag, spray it with some oil, and put it in the fridge. And then I can get 2 smallish size pizzas out of what's left. So we'll go ahead. Our water is nice and warm. I can put my finger in it without burning it or hurting it, but it's nice and warm. If your water is too hot, that can kill your yeast. So you want to make sure to not have it be too hot. And to this, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of honey. And all of my little measuring spoons are dirty right now, so we're just going to guesstimate. You can use sugar if you prefer. We're going to use 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I just like to use sea salt. And we're going to go with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball that. I do make this recipe a lot, so that's why I can kind of see how much I need. Okay, and then I'm going to show you, I'm not going to put the yeast in yet. We're going to put the yeast in after our resting period. If you're using active dry yeast, if you hold out some of the water from the original recipe and just a pinch of that sugar, you're going to put it in a small bowl, a little bit of the water, a little bit of the sugar, in with your active dry yeast in a small bowl, and let that sit for that 15-minute rest period while the dough is sitting before we put our instant yeast in. And then by the time that 15-minute rest period is up, your little yeast bowl should be foamy. If it's not foamy, that means there's something wrong with the yeast. Either it's no good or the water was too hot that you put with the yeast. If it's nice and foamy, when we put our instant yeast in here, that's when you can put your active dry yeast foamy mixture in here and then carry on with the recipe the same way. So that's a very common question that I get asked. That way I'm gonna just let you know right here while we're making it together. So the trick that I use is I leave my little teaspoon out in front of my mixer. That way I know when I'm coming here, oh yeah, I haven't put my yeast in yet. This is my little reminder. Because yes, I have forgot to put my yeast in before. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put in our little roller. And put in our dough scraper. Anytime you're trying to adjust this arm, I've noticed that I hear a lot of people say this knob back here can get stripped out. Well, if you're forcing and having to screw really hard and turn this, then all you need to do is pull the tension off just a little bit. So if you just take this and pull it towards you, this screws very easily in or out. But if I'm trying to screw this in or out or pull my pin while this is all the way against the bowl, I have a harder time getting that to work. So I have learned that if I need to adjust this knob or pull this out, I just pull the tension just back a little bit and then I can get this going. So I wanted to address that because I know that was a question a lot of people had also. So I'm going to go ahead and mix in the wet ingredients before we put in our flour. It helps to have it plugged in. This is handy, you know, so it works. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to go ahead and start mixing in the wet ingredients on the lowest speed. And I love how this can be, don't be afraid to use this arm while you're mixing. If you see that there's something not right with your dough or whatever you're mixing, whether that be cookies or bread or whatever, don't be afraid to do this or even this if you need to. So I found that I really enjoy using this mixer because I love to be able to adjust and move these as I'm going on the fly. So that's good. And here is our freshly milled flour. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. So you can see in the center, I still have some dry flour and it's not wanting to mix. So I'm going to go ahead, just give this a little push like that, and we're good to go. Okay, so now that everything is mixed together, again, this is just one batch of dough. This mixer will handle several batches of dough, but I'm still just sticking with the one for now, just so I can show you how it works. And also, I feel that there's so many videos out there that show the maximum potential of what this mixer can do, but I had a hard time finding many videos about like one batch of dough or one batch of cookies. So I wanted to show you that can be done too. I do have a ginger snap cookie recipe in this mixer that I put out last week, I believe. If you check that out, I just did one batch of cookies. I was able to cream the butter and sugar in this bowl with just 2 sticks of butter. So I was very pleased that that worked, because I was not able to find anywhere online that would tell me if this could handle with the roller ball and scraper just 2 sticks of butter. So that was interesting to me. I had to try it out just to see if I could make that work. So what I'm going to do is just pull my tension off, pull my pin out, loosen it a bit, loosen it a bit. I'm just going to set these in here. Sometimes they fall, whatever. It's fine, no big deal. And I'm going to cover this. We're going to cover this for 15 minutes. I can use this cover this way or this way. We're going to cover it for 15 minutes. And remember, I have my little measuring spoon out here. I could put it in the bowl or in the lid if I wanted to remind me. I still need to put the yeast in here. So after the 15-minute rest period, after we're allowing all the fresh melt flour to start absorbing the liquid, this helps cut back on the kneading time. It helps develop the gluten faster. It helps the flour to absorb the water quicker, because with white flour, the water pretty much instantaneously starts absorbing. So we need this rest period for it to be at least 15 minutes. It can go longer than that if you want. So I'll be back in about 15 minutes. Okay, so now it has been sitting for 15-20 minutes or so. I lost my little pieces here. That's okay. I kind of thought that might happen because I'm doing a smaller batch here, or not a large batch. No biggie. Okay, so now that the flour has had a chance to start soaking all of that goodness in, now it's time to put in our yeast. So if you were using active dry yeast, now's the time to put in your foamy mixture. If you're using instant yeast, I'm using about 2 teaspoons. And now we're going to go ahead and start the kneading process. So you can see already the dough has changed a little bit from that really liquidy, almost soupy mess. We have to resist trying to add more flour at that point. With fresh melt flour, I feel like we're all stuck in the mindset of white flour, where we dumping and dumping and dumping flour in until we get a ball of dough. But fresh melt flour absorbs water so much slower that if we do that, our dough ends up dry. And if our dough is dry, it will never reach the window pane. So the 2 biggest issues with not receiving that stretchy dough is under kneading and too dry of dough. So we want to make sure that we try to resist adding extra flour if we can. Now, if we get here and we start the kneading process and there is no structure whatsoever, and it is literally like soup, yes, you're probably going to have to add a little bit of flour. But as you can see, I hope you can see, this already has a little bit of structure. It's still pretty wet. If I was making this with white flour, I would instantly want to add more flour because it looks like it's not enough flour. It looks like it's too wet. But with fresh melt flour, it comes together, and once you see that happen and the dough almost transforms in front of your eyes, then you get it. So once you learn how to see the texture, the moisture level, what the dough looks like, what the dough feels like, then you can pretty much master any recipe, because you know if it's going to need more water or more flour. And there's not really a good way to teach that on a video. The best way to learn that is to just keep making them. So find one recipe and master it, and you'll start to see what I mean about the transformation of the dough. When I first started, I had many of flops, trust me. I think everyone has. And if they didn't, they're probably lying to you. But we all have stuff that doesn't quite work out perfectly, especially in the beginning, and that's okay. Chalk it up to croutons, or hey, you're just learning. So it's okay if it doesn't work out the first time, the second time, even the third time. I have a Facebook group called Fresh Milled Flour. I put a link in the description box below. You can go on there and ask questions. I try to answer as many as I can, but there's also many other people on there that are very well versed in fresh milled flour and can answer questions. So hop on over there if you have questions. I really do have a passion and want you to be successful, because I understand the frustration of not being able to get your dough to work out. So without further ado, I guess I'm going to go ahead and adjust this out from the side of the wall just a little bit, because my dough, I'm noticing, is creeping up my roller. So as it creeps up my roller while it's spinning, I know that it needs pulled away from the edge. So you just got to find that sweet spot where it needs to go with this particular mixer. If you have a different mixer, then that doesn't apply to you. So let's get to kneading. Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
Okay, so I want to show you, we're 5 minutes into kneading. I had my timer set. So this dough is very sticky, but it's stretchy. But you can see, I hope you can see, it wants to tear easily, and it's not smooth at all. So it's very clumpy, but we are getting some stretch. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in here. It tears very easily when I pull on it. It is starting to get stretchy though. So that stretch, that's our gluten structure. So that's what we want anytime we're making any pizza doughs, breads, anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and continue kneading this. Again, this was 5 minutes. We are starting to get some nice, beautiful stretch, but we are definitely not there yet. So I'm going to go ahead and go again, and I'll come back to that and show you where we're at the next step. Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
Okay, so now we're at 10 minutes. Let me wet my hands. Ooh, let me go a little bit. Wet my hands and pull on this here. So, stretchy, stays together a little bit. Some people would go ahead and make bread or dough at this point, and it probably would end up being fine. But I'm trying, doing... Oh, my arm's in the way. Doing a window pane at this point, yeah, it's just breaking, shredding, all that. So I'm going to keep going. Now, if you have a different mixer, specifically the Bosch or Artiste, yours may be done kneading by now. So if you have a KitchenAid or the Bosch Compact like I have, the little one, or this Ank, there's likely that 10 minutes probably isn't enough kneading time, but you can see there's some stretch in there. So I'm going to go ahead and let it keep going, and I'll bring you right back. Alexa, set a timer for 5 minutes. Okay, we're at 15 minutes, and I think you can see we're definitely getting stretchier, because you can see it's wanting to go around the little roller here. Okay, so still wanting to break, but very stretchy. So we're going to keep going. Okay, so now we are at about 23 minutes, and I want to show you get my hands wet. Anytime you're grabbing the dough, it helps to get your hands wet with water or oil. But now you can see the stretch. Okay, you can see I can get what they call a window pane, where you can stretch it real thin. You can see light through it. But more importantly, if you just take the dough and give it a tug, you can see it's not wanting to break. It's staying together. Of course, if I yank it, I can break it. I'm not saying you can't break it, but it doesn't want to break. It wants to stay together. So now we know we're ready to go. So if you're making this the same day that you made the dough, you could go ahead and put a cover on this, let it rise for an hour, and then put it in your focaccia pan or whatever pan you want to bake it in. But what I'm going to do, and I recommend you do as well, let me loosen this, is to put this in a pan and let it marinate or ferment overnight. So again, I was saying that I was going to cut this in half and save the other half of this dough for pizza for the family. Again, you can decide what thickness and how much dough you want to use. So let me grab, let's see, let me move this back here. Okay. And here's my pan. So we want to make sure that we oil this really good with olive oil. And of course, we're going to be using some olive oil on it tomorrow before we go to bake it. You can top this with whatever you want. You can leave it plain. You can put flake salt on here. You can put garlic, rosemary. You can do the focaccia art, which is beautiful. I've seen all kinds of gorgeous things out there where they just decorate it like a garden or a forest or a meadow. So let your imagination go wild. You can do art with this. All right. I'm going to take half of my dough. Well, I cut it in half earlier. So you can see how stretchy this is. I pulled that right out of my pan and it all wanted to stay together. Okay, so get my hands oily. We're going to spread this out. Remember, this has not had any rise time at all. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator and let it do some rising overnight in there. And you can always put the whole batch on here, again, if you want a thicker focaccia. But you can also see here where I'm stretching this dough and it's not ripping and tearing. That's what you want. That means you achieved your window pane or your nice stretchy dough. That's what gives us that light, airy texture. Same goes for with bread. So same rules apply. Okay. So I think focaccia is one of those fun recipes that we get down and dirty, feel the dough. And tomorrow, of course, we get to put our little oil and dimples and seasonings and whatever you want in there. You could season the dough here also if you wanted to. I'm just going with plain. But it would be fun to experiment with different flavors. So let me set this to the side. Well, actually, we're going to cover this with saran wrap. We're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then I'll bring you back tomorrow when we bake it, and I will show you the little dimplings and how we finish this off. So let me go ahead and cover this and pop it in the fridge. With the other half of the dough, I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil in a bag here. Of course, you can use a container or just cover that. Bowl, if you have room in your refrigerator, which I definitely do not. But you may if you have extra refrigerator, extra space. So of course I can go ahead and just spray this with cooking spray, but I had this olive oil next to me, so I figured I would go ahead and do this and line the bag with it. Okay, so for the rest of this, so this mixer, this Ankerson mixer does come with a little scraper that is the perfect size for this. But I find this works just fine too. So you can see nice and stretchy dough. Just gonna pop that right in. Well, if it doesn't grab onto it there. Just gonna pop that right in the bag. And we definitely want to make sure that we oil this bag because it will stick to the sides if we do not. And also you want to make sure if you're making a full batch of this and you want to pop this in the fridge, you could just put the focaccia all together in the fridge and then put it in the pan tomorrow. I just like to do it this way because we're ready to go. We can bake it for lunch, dinner, whatever. And it also is all ready to go in its vessel. And I don't have to worry about popping that bubbly goodness. So anytime you want to put them in a bag, I will let you know this. This recipe, even a single batch, is too much dough to go in one of these 1 gallon Ziploc bags, because when this rises in the fridge, if you put the entire batch in here, it will actually expand and break open the bags. So yes, I know that from experience. So you want to make sure to at least divide it in half, or actually I prefer to do it in thirds. And oftentimes I will make 3 smaller pizzas or 4 personal size pizzas, or you can make 2 large pizzas, but my oven does not fit large pizzas. So this is going in the fridge. We can have a pizza in the next few days, a couple pizzas in the next few days with this, and then the focaccia I'll bring you back tomorrow. Okay, this is the next morning. We're pulling this out of the fridge, and you can see it didn't fill the pan, but we're going to let this come to room temperature. I'm going to loosen up this wrap so that it doesn't stick to the top. Let it come to room temperature 1 to 2 hours, and then we'll get the olive oil out and start the dimpling. Okay, so I'm going to decorate this with more of, I guess, sort of a Christmas theme, but you can do it however you want. Here's our focaccia. It's been sitting at room temperature for about 2 hours. You can see we've got the nice, lovely olive oil that it's been sitting in, and we're going to need to add more olive oil. So there is a trick to keeping your toppings from burning too much. If you coat these in olive oil, that helps to not have them burn. So this, in a real world sense, is way too much rosemary, I would say, for a regular focaccia bread, but it's mostly going to be decoration, and I'm going to end up pulling most of it off before we eat it. So what I'm going to do is just drizzle some olive oil on the rosemary and these tomatoes so that I can use this for decorating. I'm choosing to use a garlic olive oil this is from Trader Joe's, but you can get it from anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and drizzle the top of this with a nice healthy dose of some olive oil. And then what we're going to do is gently, we're just going to make sure that our fingers have some olive oil on it, and we're just going to gently press. You can feel all the air bubbles in this. We don't want to deflate and smash the entire loaf. Of course, we don't want that. Okay, so now we're going to just decorate it how we want, and I just want to make sure that these are coated nicely. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to use. I can save the rest for dinner another day. It's okay to press your toppings in. These will just be our little ornaments. Careful when these are oily, they're harder to cut. One yellow, one for the star at the top. Okay, so I'm gonna let this continue to proof. Again, like I said, this is a lot of rosemary to be using on just a regular focaccia, but this is more our focaccia art. So it's for a nice decoration. I'm gonna leave this open and let this stay in my room temperature. I can already see these lovely yeasty bubbles. I'll try to bring you in closer to show you some of these as it's rising. And then towards the end of our rise, we will preheat our oven. And then I will let you know how long this took. Again, if you like a thicker focaccia, you could use the entire batch on just this one tray. So it's just all into your preference, completely customizable. So I'll be back after it rises when we put it in the oven. Towards the end of the rise, we're going to preheat our oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Since this is a thinner focaccia, I'm going to go ahead and start with 18 minutes, but it may need to go up from there, so I will let you know how long it takes. Basically, we're going to be focusing more on the browning rather than the time. Okay, she has been rising for about, 35-ish minutes. We're gonna go in the oven and I'll let you take a peek once she's browned and crispy on the bottom and ready. Okay, so it's been in the oven for about 15-16 minutes. Make sure to put it on the bottom rack because you want that dark golden color on the top. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and pull this out and I'll let you see from the top what it looks like. Look how beautiful. Now this was about 16 minutes in the oven. You could, if you'd like it a little darker, you could go a little darker, but we have that nice golden color on the top and the nice golden color on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put a wire rack underneath of this. That way it doesn't get soggy. So you want to put a wire rack underneath so it doesn't get soggy and it get nice and crispy. Okay, it's ready to cut. And I want to show you if I can. Well, I'll show you after I cut it. Never mind. So you can see nice and squishy and fluffy texture, but we also have this nice, beautiful air bubbles inside. Enjoy! I hope you enjoyed making this focaccia with me. I know it took a couple days for us to get there, but don't forget to check out my blog at grainsandsamallplaces.net where you can find this recipe and a whole bunch of other recipes all dedicated to fresh milled flour. Also, go check out the Rose Homestead and all of her videos, what she has to offer. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for stopping by Grains and Small Places. Goodbye.